Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Byrne from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. And today we're going to talk about this week's blog, which is about early warning signs, the red warning signs in relationships. Now, these red warning signs will occur during the dating phase or the first year to 2 years of a relationship. If that is the case, always trust your gut instinct and it's time to leave, okay? In saying that, there's always the exception with everything. So, if you can go into therapy and work on it as a couple and you're both willing to do that, that can be the case, that can be good. But for most of these, this is a no. This is, it's a no-brainer here. You really need to be walking away because there isn't a future in it. And if you try and push it and you both try and push the relationship, it can end up that you end up in therapy or end up say, or divorced or, not together in the long run anyway. So these are things you need to be looking at when you first meet somebody, or the first few months of meeting somebody. You definitely need to be looking at them. So the first one is lack of sexual chemistry. So if there's no sexual chemistry between the two of you, it's not likely you're going to get it. You need that. You need friendship for a good, strong marriage. You need a good, strong friendship for that. But initially, there has to be some sort of attraction between the two of you. And I'm only going to run briefly through all these this morning because there's more detail in the blog. So do check them out. Another one is having nothing in common. This would be a big one. If you have nothing, I'm talking about the major things like religion, culture, how many kids you're going to have, things like that. Think about what you have in common, but think about, is there more that you don't have in common? And then you've got to decide, well, can we work on it? Can we actually, is this the love of my life that I'm willing to work on it? Because you're going to have to work on it if you have nothing in common. You're going to have to really work on it. A big one, not making time for you. If this person is not making time for you, guess what? They're never going to make the time for you. If they are working all the time, then good chance they're workaholics. They could swap out workaholics. It's an addiction, so therefore they could swap it out for another addiction. If you're the one that's going to be sitting waiting at home looking after the kids, and they're not going to turn up because they're so tied to their job, or they're so tied to a sport or their hobbies or other people, their friends, if they're spending time with them and they're just not spending time with you, they're not really, as they say, that into you. They're not that into you, because an awful lot of the times, particularly early on when we're really connected with somebody and we want that relationship with them, we will spend time with them. We will want to spend time with them to the detriment of our hobbies and to the detriment of our friends and family. So, they should be spending time with you. And if not, that's a major red flag. Controlling and demanding personality, a major red flag, absolute major red flag. I go into talk about narcissism and sociopaths and psychopaths and things like that, and how they can manipulate you. So, I talk about that more in the blog, and I link out to the other blogs that I've talked about those type of personality disorders before. But if they are very controlling or very demanding, guess what? They're going to continue to be very controlling and very demanding. And very, very likely this is going to be a domestic violence situation. So there are people you run away from, in fact. Different spending habits, and I'll talk about a bit more about finances in a few minutes, but different spending habits again. Finances is one of the things that couples fight about, brings them into therapy, or it splits up the relationship. So if you've got differences right from the get-go in terms of how you spend things and how you save things, well, you've got to ask yourself, am I willing to put up with this, or is that person willing to work on this with me? Are they willing to change? Because you can't change them. Don't kid yourself. You cannot change another person. The only person you can change is yourself. So you've got to look at that and say, okay, I've got to be honest here. Is this going to be a deal breaker for me? Issues from the past, again, if you are either your childhood traumas, or if they have previous relationships and they are bringing all that baggage in and they have not taken the time to get therapy for it and deal with it appropriately. If they are still talking about their ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, or ex-partner or whatever, they're not ready for a relationship. They're not ready for a relationship with you. It's not a healthy starting point for you. If there's somebody who's actively going and get therapy and they're working on what has happened to them in the past, then that's something then you can discuss with them about sticking in there. If you feel so strongly about them and they feel so strongly about you and you have good communication and you can talk about this, then by all means it might work. But if they are not getting treatment at all, if they don't even see they have issues from the past, then you've got to say to yourself, do I want to stick this out? Because they're probably always going to have those issues. They're not going to be willing to get the help, and they may develop addictions or something else, some coping mechanisms that may not be apparent initially, but may be there that you don't really see. So you've got to think about these. If your friends and family have a problem with the person, now, sometimes we can meet somebody and our friends and family may not initially like them. That can happen. It's that can happen. It doesn't happen all the time. It can happen. But when your family and friends are actually telling you things and they are hitting red warning signs, then please be honest enough with yourself to stop and think and say, is this true? Is this really what's going on? And I'm talking about, in particular, and we should be talking to our young people about this, is if they see signs of, they may not call it domestic violence, they may not call it gaslighting, but if they see signs that are red warning flags and you don't notice them, particularly if the person is getting in your head and is isolating you, they may see the red warning signs before you do. Be honest enough with yourself to stop and think. You don't have to agree with them right away. You don't have to drop the other person just because your family and friends don't like them. But at least be honest enough to stop and think, is there some sort of, is there something to what they're saying? Is there something I'm missing that they're picking up on? And if that's the case, and if these are, as I said, early warning signs for domestic violence, gaslighting, things like that, you've got to get away. You've got to leave. You've got to leave and leave safely. So do check out my blog on domestic violence and leaving early. And please do talk. If you're a parent and you're listening to this, talk to your kids and give them the early warning signs of dating, domestic violence in dating, because it does happen. So we need to make and raise more awareness around young people that they can happen, that domestic violence can happen in a dating situation. So do talk to them about that if you're a parent. If they have boundary issues, if you've got boundary issues, if your boundaries are skewed, if it's coming from the past, you've got to tackle those before you can have a healthy relationship, I'm afraid. If they are always encroaching on your boundaries and they just do not know how to hold healthy boundaries themselves, again, these are issues, these are problems that that person has, and if they're willing to sit down with you and talk to you and agree to go get therapy, well then perhaps the relationship could work, but maybe it's not going to work then. A boundary issue thing is very much tied into having problems from the past, or being, having, as I said, narcissism and things like that. So, think about it. Think about, if somebody has boundary issues, or if you have your own boundary issues, then you really need to be going and getting those sorted out, or start to learn how to have healthy boundaries, because then you will attract a more healthy relationship with another person. If they are disrespecting you, if they have contempt, if they are dishonest, guess what? Walk away. Absolute big red flag there. 3 red flags. Sometimes it can be very subtle, and it's the when is a compliment not a compliment kind of thing. So they pay you a compliment, but it's in such a way it's actually insulting you. But it's so subtle you don't realize that's what they're doing. And a lot of these guys, and I shouldn't just say guys, but a lot of people have skewed boundaries, are narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, domestic violence, all that. They will have those. That's what they will be doing. They will be, I don't like the way you're dressed. There'll be very subtle compliment. There'll be very subtle. There'll be common compliments, and you'll be kind of going, "Is that a compliment? Did he pay me a compliment? Did he not pay me a compliment? What's going on there?" And you'll start to second guess yourself. So, guess what? Red flag, walk away. Dishonesty, any type of dishonesty, any type of, putting you down, any type of, contempt or disrespect in any way, guess what? Walk away. Absolutely red flag. Do not be in this relationship. It is not a healthy relationship to have. Communication difficulties, of course, and ineffectual arguing. Again, this will need help. Communication and not being able to argue correctly with one another in appropriate ways are, again, things that bring people into counselling. So if you're having that from get-go, you've got to say to yourself, okay, are we going to work on this as a couple? Are we going to be able to work through this? Do we need to go now, right from the start of the relationship, and have couple counselling? Is that worth it? You've got to ask yourself, is this worth it? Is this what I want? And if it is, well then yes, you have to go to counselling and get this sorted. If you can't communicate, if you cannot communicate with one another, I would say walk away. Just walk away. But what the heart wants is what the heart wants. So sometimes we will put up with a lot. But be rest assured you will need therapy as a couple to get this sorted. If they are distancing themselves, again, guess what? He's not that into you, as they say, or she's not that into you. If they are not calling you, not texting you, if they were initially and then they start to back off, yeah, guess what? The relationship is over. They just haven't got the guts to tell you it's over, and they're out of here. Cheating, big red flag, guys. No. if he or she is already cheating on you, then just no. The relationship, no. You're setting yourself up for more cheating throughout the entire relationship if you do marry them or if you go into a long-term relationship. So, no, not a good idea. As I said, money is always going to bring somebody into counselling, couples into counselling, or it'll break the relationship. So having financial secrets, and that's different than spending habits. But if you find out they are hiding any sort of financial difficulties, if they have debts they haven't been talking about, it could mean that they have a gambling problem. It could mean multiple things. It could be that they're shamed, that they've that they've built up this debt and they've hidden it from you. Again, do you want to take that on because their debts become your debts? So are you always going to be finding secret debts? Are you always going to be paying off debts? Is there a gambling issue there? You've got to investigate that and decide for yourself whether you want to continue with that relationship. Trust issues, again, if you've got trust issues, you should be coming to therapy. If they have trust issues, they need to be going to therapy. And that, again, could come and stem from a childhood or from previous relationships. All need therapy before that person can continue in a healthy relationship. And that is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for to have a healthy relationship with somebody, not have all these issues that I'm talking about. You want to kind of avoid most of these. Then the last one I'll talk about is not talking about where the relationship is going or where it's at this moment in time. So if they're not making plans to spend time with you in the future, you kind of go, are we both on the same page here, or am I just being strung along? Am I the fill-in until they meet the love of their lives? You've got to question all that. If they're not talking about where the relationship is heading, you should be. You should be. I'm not talking about the first couple of dates here, guys. So we're talking about 6+ months in, depending on how intense the relationship is. So particularly if you've gotten a year in and nobody's talking about the future, nobody's talking about the future, and if you've moved in together, and nobody's talking about the future, that's a red flag. So you have to talk about that. And the other thing, just going back to not spending time with you, if they're not spending time with you, it could be a red flag that they're already married, or that they're in a relationship, a long-term relationship with somebody else. So that's another one. Just the two of those could go hand in hand. Not talking about where the relationship is headed, and not really making time for you, or if they're just ringing up at the last minute, that's a booty call. So that's not a relationship, okay? You're just being used for sex. So if you want a proper healthy relationship, if you're ticking those boxes, that's not a healthy relationship, okay? If you're ticking some of the boxes on this week's blog, you've got to ask yourself, you've got to really be honest with yourself. Do I want to continue with this relationship long term? What am I getting out of it? What am I really getting out of this? And maybe it's you that needs to go in and have a chat with somebody. So I'm going to leave it there for this week. I will be talking about self-care pretty soon, particularly as we're coming up to, and I won't say it because I know it's only the middle of October, but we are coming up to a big thing in a few months, and people let their self-care go, particularly, or get more stressed out in the run-up to this event, the C event, come up in about 2 months' time. So in those few weeks, we can let it go. So I am going to be talking about very shortly now, I'm going to be talking about self-care and how to put more self-care into your life. So I will leave it there, and thank you very much. Thank you, Deirdre, as always, for being on live with me, and Colette, as always, as well. So I will talk to you again next Saturday morning, and the new blog will be out again on Monday. So this week's blog, I will put the links in the comments below. If anybody's got any questions, pop them in the links. I'm more than happy to try and answer them for you, okay? And I'll see you all again next Saturday morning. Thank you.